Hi, Newlife family. My name is Leah Sorrell, and I'm the children's pastor here. And today I'm just going to summarize a little bit of Amos and also jump into the book of Jonah. So, Amos, he was from a small town, a shepherd. He tended a sycamore fig grove. I just think it's so cool that God calls just an ordinary guy, doing ordinary things to do something really extraordinary. And I think it gives us all hope, right? So be encouraged. The disciples, right? Fishermen and tax collectors, David, a king, yet he was a teenage shepherd boy. I mean, it just gives us hope, right? That with the presence of God, that when we work with him and he works with us, that we're able to accomplish amazing things. But we have to say yes. And that, I think, is the key thing for the book of Amos, is that God called him to do something great, bigger than himself. And his answer was yes, right? So Israel outside, according to what they were seeing, everything looked amazing, right? Financial stability, they had military power, there was strength there. Politically, things were going well, but their hearts were far away from God. There was idolatry, immorality, corruption, oppression of the poor. So the Lord gave me kind of a picture of, a building, right? So on the top, the building looks beautiful. It looks amazing. They've got their act together, right? But we know that underneath every building is a foundation. And unfortunately, that foundation had fallen away from the solid rock, which was God. And I think of Matthew 7. Remember, the Lord was talking about how a foolish man builds their house on the sand, right? And so it's just going to come crumbling down sooner or later. And that's exactly what was going to happen to Israel. And that's why the Lord was sending Amos to this place. But even though there was so much evil, I love that the Lord's heart was still desperately for his people, right? He lamented. Lamented is there was grief and there was sorrow towards his people. He was still calling them back. In Amos 5, it really stood out to me. Seek me and live, he says. And he goes on, seek good, not evil, and live. He's calling his people back to him. But he's a just God. It's who he is. He can't ignore, right, the unrighteousness and the godlessness that was there and the evil that was there. So, Amos also is an intercessor. He interceded on behalf of Israel. And, God did relent in destroying and having total destruction. There was going to be destruction, but it wasn't going to be total and complete destruction. There was some judgment that was lifted as a result of Amos's prayer. I mean, doesn't that give you hope that when you intercede on behalf of something, and even now, as we're fasting and we're interceding on behalf of our country, that God is hearing. He's going to be able to relent as we partner with him and his kingdom. It really gives us great hope. So Amos was warning Israel, and then Jonah gets a call from God. Hey, Jonah, I want you to warn Nineveh. So the difference, though, in the two is Amos said yes, and Jonah ran away. So the attitudes initially were definitely different. It actually cracks me up. I was reading Jonah 1, and, Jonah gets on the ship. He's like, heck no, I'm out of here. I'm going to Tarshish, and he's trying to flee from the presence of God. You can't do that. You can't flee from the presence of God. We sang about it last Thursday night at our Worship with the Word, Psalm 139, verses 7 through 10, and I'll read it to you. I love it. It says, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea," Jonah, "even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast." I love the idea of always having that covering, right? It doesn't matter where we go, even if we do it without even thinking about it, when we try and run away and not even realizing that we're running away, the Lord is always going to be there. We have that seal of ownership on us, as in the New Testament it talks about how there's a seal of ownership. And so we can never run away from him. And, even in Jonah's disobedience, the crew of the ship, when they threw him overboard and the storm ceased, these pagan people that were worshiping other gods realized, whoa, Jonah's God is actually in charge of the sea here. So even some eyes were opened as a result of Jonah's disobedience. So he can still use, right, and turn a bad situation for good. When Jonah is in this belly of a fish, his attitude kind of changes. He starts thanking the Lord. Even though he's alive in the belly of the fish, he's thanking the Lord for saving him. And Jonah 2:9, he says, "But I with shouts of grateful praise will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will make good. I will say salvation comes from the Lord." Now he's fully recognizing that, you know what? I even need the salvation of God. It's nothing of myself. Just like these Ninevites need God, I need him too. And it's not until he fully surrenders his will and proclaims his praise and the salvation of God that God commands this fish to vomit Jonah up on the land, and he's saved. You know, I love what Bill Johnson says, and I quote, "Physical obedience brings spiritual release. Physical obedience brings spiritual release." So as soon as Jonah now is saying yes and he's walking into Nineveh, there's a spiritual release of what God needs to do in that city, and they repent. God spares them because they're fasting, they're repenting, they are renouncing, right, their ways and the evil that they succumb to. And it's funny, you know, Jonah, he all of a sudden he wants to die again, and it's like, what's going on, Jonah? What's going on in your head? And I was asking the Lord, you know, why would he all of a sudden now he wants to die? Because they are fasting and renouncing their sin. You know, he's like, this is what I told you would happen. This is why I went to Tarshish, you know, totally complaining and blaming the Lord. You know, could it be that because Jonah's warning of destruction didn't happen and now it's a reflection of him? You know, sometimes when we're called to ask, the Lord calls us and asks us to do or go somewhere or say something to someone, share his gospel with somebody, share his love, you know, we might be afraid of the reaction because we feel it might be a reflection of us. And, you know, we talk a lot at Newlife about our identity being in the Lord. You know what? It's a reflection of him and his love when we follow his order and we say yes, right? We follow his request and we say yes to him. He's the one that's in control of the situation, no matter the outcome. The other thing I thought of, well, maybe was it jealousy that, you know, now Nineveh is the favorite, right? He's thinking, well, Israel, we're supposed to be the favorite, right? But isn't it wonderful that God's compassion can extend to all people? And here we are, you know, now we're the Gentiles, right? We're the Gentiles of the group, of the Christian group. And aren't you so glad that the Lord's grace and compassion extends to us, the non-Jewish people, right? We are all chosen by him, and there's so much freedom in that and love in that, right? So these are some of the main things just that I took away from both Amos and Jonah. I just kind of have them listed, so I'll read them to you. The first one is, my yes to God changes not only myself, but it can change other people, right? Another thing is, intercession on behalf of a nation can lift God's judgment. That is so powerful. Something else, we need to have a healthy fear, a healthy awe, and surrender to God. And we need to keep him close, right? We need to keep him close. We need to talk to him. We need to spend time to him. We need to be in his presence, right? In order to hear from him and have his heart for others. Thanksgiving goes a long way, right? Praise and thanksgiving is huge. And it's an act of surrendering and not being of ourselves, but being humble and giving him the praise that he deserves. And then lastly, God uses the littlest in man's eyes to the prestigious, right? He uses all people. God's heart is for all people. So hopefully this encourages you today, and God bless you, New Life family.